Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage joining me from Las Vegas. We'll talk the first two games of Vegas Summer League, biggest takeaways, and who might have the inside track on the final rotation spots for the Wolves. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Today, we've got Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage on the show today. He is going to join me from Las Vegas. He's there covering the Summer League for Zone Coverage, and he's going to give me his takeaways from being there live on the ground, talking to Kevin Hansen, the Wolves head coach for Summer League, and some of the players on what they've seen so far in Vegas. We'll talk about who we think might have the inside track on the final rotation spots in the regular season, what we're looking for with the final week. And he's got a surprising player, somebody I barely talked about on the show, who he says to look out for in games 3 and 4 coming up here in Vegas. First, though, a big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. You can watch on YouTube. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. All right, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Andrew Dukowitz of Zone Coverage. All right, as promised, Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage and Daily Wolves is here with us today. We're going to talk a little Summer League. Andrew's in Las Vegas. You're just telling me it's warm there. What's the high temperature you've gotten so far?
It's been in the 110s, and
110s.
As someone who lives in a climate-controlled house that is set to 67 at all times, the 110s has not been friendly. But thankfully, all of my Lyft drivers have had their AC working.
Yeah, it's almost twice as hot as you keep your dwelling. It sounds like that's a lot. Yeah, it's crazy that it happens in Vegas in the middle of the summer. That's where the entire NBA world, gathers. That's what we've landed on. But anyway, so let's talk Timberwolves in Vegas. We're recording this after the Wolves have played 2 games in Las Vegas. This is Monday's show here at Locked On Wolves. So the Wolves don't play again until tomorrow on Tuesday. But we had a game on Thursday, and we had a game Saturday night, and the Wolves are 2-0. But of course, what everybody's watching is the Timberwolves first round draft pick, Joan Beringer, and all the rotation guys the Wolves have in Vegas. And they're should be one of the best teams in Vegas because they actually have like 4 guys starting for them, 3 guys who saw real NBA minutes last year on a good team. And most of these teams, that's simply not the case. So it's maybe not surprising the Wolves are 2-0. What I want to start with is just kind of overall takeaways to this point through 2 games, like what stood out to you the most, and then we'll get into some of the individual players. And this can be from game 1, game 2, overall between the 2 games. But like if I was to say, what's the biggest takeaway or biggest 2 takeaways so far through 2 games in Vegas, what would you say?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is just how, Johan. I think he's the biggest takeaway for me. He is a basketball novice. I mean, he's only played basketball for 3.5 years. And he is running off of pure instincts. I talked to Kevin Hansen about it at practice 2 days ago, and Kevin was just like, yeah, he doesn't know the schemes. He doesn't know where he's supposed to be. He's still figuring out like the language, like he didn't know what gap zones were and things like that. Like he really is just playing off of sheer, like just basketball intelligence and know-how. And he looks dominant without really understanding how to play the game, which, regular season, is he going to look like this if he gets minutes? Probably not, because the competition is going to be so much higher. And, he jumps at everything and he doesn't really understand a lot. But I mean, for a 19-year-old kid that's only been playing basketball for 3 years and has no clue what the heck is going on schematically, to have this type of impact is really, it should be really encouraging to Wolves fans, because if we're planning on this guy being the heir apparent to Rudy Gobert, theoretically, he has about 2 years to figure out more of those schematic things. And just his raw intangibles understanding. I mean, I talked with him yesterday for a little bit at practice, just off to the side. And I was trying to get to know him a little bit more. And I said, I mean, what do you do for fun? And he's like, basketball. Like, you don't play FIFA, you don't play 2K? No, basketball. It's like, okay, well, they got a good one.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is incredible. Like, that's my number one takeaway too, is what we've seen from him so far. And I would say, I mean, I think describing him as a novice is great. He's so instinctual despite not knowing all this stuff. And it's funny because you can see both things. You can see the raw instincts and obviously the raw athleticism and talent, but then you can also see, like, to your point, he jumps at everything. Was credited with 6 blocks in the opener. By my count, he had more like 7 or 8. Credit with 6 blocks in the opener. Only had 1 in the second game, and early in the game, he was literally jumping at everything. Like, he was just like a half second late or a fraction of a second late on several block attempts. Shots that he probably had no business trying to block, and he would have been better. Well, I say that, and of course, the guy had 6 blocks the other day, so maybe he can block some of those shots. But yeah, learning to stay down and all that to say, like, he's only committed, I think, 3 fouls across the 2 games, which is also crazy. But it does feel like one of those where if he gets into practice, watches film with coaches and gets on the floor with Rudy Gobert a little bit more often or at all, he's going to learn some of that stuff, some of the schematic things like you're talking about. But the fact that the instincts are that strong, it really, really impressive. And I have on our graphic to talk about him later, but we may as well just keep talking about him now because he's also my number one takeaway. The biggest thing that I've been impressed with is his poise and activity level on the glass. He gets to seemingly everything, to so many rebounds that he should have no business getting to. And like, especially on the offensive glass, and then also what to do with the ball afterward, like the outlet passes on the defensive glass. And then on the offensive glass, if he's around the rim, he's going to try and score it. If he's a little bit away from the rim, he's quickly kicking it out to the perimeter. Basically, if he's not in the restricted area, he's getting rid of the basketball. And there was one he shoveled a pass to, I think it was Amari Bailey, for a layup off an offensive rebound. It was just such an instinctual, I have this, I'm looking to my left, I see a guy cutting, I'm just going to dump it off to him. But it's not something we see guys who've been in the league for years always do correctly. And it seems like that's just natural to him.
100%. And that's what it is. It's natural to him. He's new to speaking English. He obviously took some English courses growing up in France. Like, I think they just have to through grade school and stuff. But most of his English he's learned was from a bunch of Croatian guys last winter. So like the language barrier is definitely there. Like, have to talk really slow to him, give him time to kind of think of responses. And on a basketball court, you can't do that. You can't talk really slowly to him and give him times to think of responses. So he's doing these things without communicating. He's doing them without fully understanding what the Wolves are expecting out of him or where he should be in their scheme. And I mean, he had another play, I think it was last night, where he had like at least a 2/3 quarter like outlet pass out to, I think it was Rob.
Yeah.
And like those are the things that are just, to have that level of awareness without playing it since he was like 5 or 6 years old is just special. His athleticism too is, to your credit, or to your point about the rebounds. I mean, some of those rebounds, he jumps like a guard or a forward.
Yeah.
Like
he's just reaching over guys and like plucking the ball from the air.
He also has the like instincts to just go straight up. Like, he doesn't try and jump over people's backs. Even when he's blocking, he always has like his offhand raised a little bit so that he can get that hand up quick and not like encroach on somebody. Like, I think Wolves fans should actually be pretty excited for what he can be a couple of years from now. Now, the thing I'm kind of tempering, at least in my DMs on X and TikTok, is this guy's probably not going to play a lot this year. Just the nature of this Wolves team, when you have Jew, when you have Nas, when you have Rudy, there's not going to be a lot of minutes out there for a 7'1" guy that doesn't really understand structure. But I mean, he's going to be working with Rudy Gobert, who's one of the best guys at understanding structure. I mean, he's thrives in a drop scheme. He also can play on ball, as we've seen the last couple of years. And I mean, the coaching staff and development staff of the Wolves are starting to put up a really impressive resume of guys that they have developed and that have come on, well, just keeping them on the bench. So I completely agree with you. His just raw talent is incredible. And then his athleticism. I mean, if he wasn't 7 feet tall, I would not know that he was a center just watching him play. He looks like a natural runner. He can jump out of the building. His hands are like really good.
Yeah.
He could be special. He's going to have a chance.
Yeah, and to your point about playing time, he's certainly like I'd put the over under at games that he appears in this year probably at 10, and I'd maybe take the under on that. Like, he's not playing the Luka Garza role, which is like you're the break glass in case of emergency big. He's not even there. He's probably like where Leonard Miller's been the last couple of years, which is blowouts only. And surely they're going to try and mix in him in the G League versus, him in practicing. And of course, that's the benefit of having the G League team 4 hours down the interstate is you can have him there at practice and send him down there for a game and whatever. So it's going to be some mix of that where you want him around Gobert, you want him around, but you want him getting game action, professionally here in the US. And so he's learning the system and all that stuff that they play in Iowa. But yeah, I mean, there's no chance he's playing rotation minutes this year. I don't even think he's on the outside of the rotation with a chance to get in the rotation. It's garbage time minutes only. He's 18 and there should be no expectation he's going to play. Clearly there's a ton of talent there. And, obviously the offensive game is gonna be the last thing that he's going to have to develop right now. He's scoring on lobs, he's scoring on putbacks, and that's all they're asking him to do. But also like, he looks very like he got to the free throw line in I think it was Saturday's game, and he looked very comfortable shooting free throws. Like the shooting motion looks pretty good for a guy that is that big and has played this little. There's some touch there, and there I think that's definitely encouraging. I want to get into some additional takeaways here, including I want to talk a bit about the other rotation guys, TJ Shannon, et cetera. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Hungry Root. Let's be honest, meal planning and grocery shopping can be overwhelming between busy schedules, picky eaters, and trying to eat healthy. It is a lot, and that's why I love Hungry Root. They take the stress out of planning by filling your cart for you with personalized groceries and meal options based on what you like and what you need. Hungry Root uses their smart cart technology to recommend groceries, recipes, and even supplements tailored to your preferences. Whether you're dairy-free, gluten-free, focused on gut health, or just trying to eat better, Hungry Root has you covered. If you have a busy schedule, like I do, and many of us do, what you'll love most is that you don't have to waste your time at the grocery store. You don't have to stress for what's for dinner. Hungry Root will already have it figured out for you based on what you like. You can take advantage of this exclusive offer right now. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. Again, that's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. All right, so my second major takeaway kind of dovetails right into talking a bit about the rotation and, or I should say that the guys who saw rotation minutes last year for the Wolves. And by that, I mean TJ Shannon, Rob Dillingham, Jaylen Clark. And I want to start with TJ Shannon because kind of my number two takeaway overall is how he's played, and specifically how he's played in the half court. We could just look at the straight scoring numbers. He scored 20 plus. He had 20 in game one. He had 24 in game two. And we know that TJ Shannon can shoot threes. We know he's got great range. We know he's a terror in transition. But what I was looking for coming into Summer League was, can he create in the half court for himself? And secondarily, is there any chance he could play make for others? If he's going to play the Nickeil Alexander-Walker role this year, and I want to talk a bit about whether or not he's made progress already toward earning that job. He's not a natural playmaker for others. He didn't really create for others at Illinois. He just kind of scored. But then in game one of Summer League, we saw him have 9 assists. In game two, he had 3 assists and no turnovers. He's still mostly scoring for himself, but I think he's made some, which is also impressive. Like scoring in the half court, he's been better than I expected him to be. And then also creating for others has been a little bit better than I expected him to be. And I would also use the word instinctual or maybe reactive for TJ Shannon when it comes to his passing in the half court. I think he's mostly made the right decisions, calling his own number versus creating for somebody else. And I've been encouraged with his performance in the half court to this point through 2 games in Vegas.
Oh yeah, completely agree. Is he going to be trust with a lot of playmaking roles on the main roster? Probably not, just to be realistic, but he does seem to, when he gets into traffic and he draws that extra defender, he does seem pretty capable of recognizing where that defender is coming from and getting the ball out, which, I mean, when we drafted him out of Illinois, turnovers was one of the big things with him. Is when he would get double teamed, he would really kind of panic and just throw the ball to wherever the point guard was. It seems like he's grown in that. And what's interesting is, like, those are the subtle Mike Conley effects where, you know, TJ will credit Mike Conley for helping him with his playmaking. I was talking to Amari Bailey, who you brought up earlier, about, you know, where he's improved on. And he was like, well, I watched a lot of Mike Conley last year. I think it's having someone like that on the team just naturally raises your court IQ. The other thing with TJ in the half court is he has been experimenting a little bit more with the just off the dribble threes, you know, sneaking behind a screen and just launching it, which is something that Nikhil and Mike are both. That's kind of one of their signature things, of hiding behind a Rudy Gobert screen, sidestepping, and then launching the three. So I do think they're trying to get him more accustomed to that, so that they don't have to like change their whole offense when he's coming in to reflect like a downhill runner or just a spot up 3-point shooter. The other thing that, you know, he's omitted to a lot is that the coaches are really looking for him to be a Nickeil Alexander-Walker defender. They want him to be just a harassing defender on the other side in the half court, coming around screens, sticking his hand in the paint and trying to rip balls out. And I've been really impressed with him so far defensively. Obviously, when Jaylen Clark's out there, they're giving Jaylen Clark kind of the more difficult assignment, but TJ's held his own in every game. He's really done a good job of just positionally being in the right spots, moving laterally. And, you know, Summer League is, as we kind of mentioned with Johan, it's not an end all be all, but there are things like this that you can take from it, of like, oh, TJ's moving better on his feet. Like, he'll probably move better on his feet during the season. He is recognizing where to go off a double team. Like, that'll probably translate into the regular season. So there's encouraging signs for sure.
Yeah. I think the idea of him potentially filling the Nickeil role, and I've said on the show over the last couple of weeks, I think it's some combination of him and Rob Dillingham tried to fill what Nickeil did by himself. I think the upside for both of those guys scoring wise is greater than that of Nickeil, and they're both good shooters, and should be good, you know, catch and shoot guys or whatever. But it's the piece of creating for others. And we'll talk about Dillingham here in a second, because that's obviously a huge part of what he needs to be able to do. But to your point, if TJ can defend, you know, at 80% of what Nickeil did, or 75% of what Nickeil did over the past couple of years, that's the biggest thing, because I think the offensive punch is going to be even more significant than what Nickeil did regularly. Like, obviously Alexander Walker had the ability to score 20 plus, but it wasn't something he was doing frequently. I think TJ Shannon can score a lot, score more quickly, score in more diverse ways than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And they're not necessarily going to ask him. He doesn't need to do that. Obviously, the Wolves were a really good offense last year with Alexander Walker playing the role he did. But if he can be, you know, like I said, 80% of the defender Nickeil is on one end of the floor and provide even more scoring on the other end, then it's really that playmaking piece that they kind of got to figure out. And maybe that is Shannon. Maybe it's just more of Ant with the ball in his hands. Or maybe it's more, you know, Mike Conley playing with the second unit, or Rob Dillingham, whatever it ends up being. But yeah, the defense is something he can definitely control, and they expect him to be a good defender. He is similar size to Nickeil. You know, he's obviously a little bit bigger, or a little bit, I guess, stronger. More physical. So there's some opportunity there for him to, you know, to show up on the defensive end of the floor. When it comes to Rob Dillingham, I think that's been really what I've seen through 2 games is a lot of what we saw last year from him, which is, you know, good and bad. Like, obviously you want to see him grow in certain areas. And I think there have been a couple of, I'll use the word instinctual again, because I think that's really what you're looking for, is these guys making these, you know, quick reaction, quick decisive plays is maybe a better way to say it. And I do think he's been a little more decisive through 2 games in Summer League, small sample, than what we saw last year in the NBA, on an NBA floor for Dillingham. But the shot selection still at times has been a little bit dicey. The shooting's been a little bit inefficient, but we've also seen him get on like a little bit of a heater in each game, where it's like he hits a couple shots and it's like, all right, here we go. And there's been these moments that are so dynamic and so impressive, and then moments where it's like, okay, this is a lot of what we saw last year. What's been your overall impression of Dillingham so far through 2 games?
Yeah, I was hoping, I was kind of going into this, I had just put out what I was hoping to see. And for me, it was defense is okay. I don't think he's ever going to be a good defender, but if he can be okay, I think that would be the number one thing to help him get on the floor. And then the other one is turnovers. And that first game was kind of a nightmare turnover wise. Defensively, he's held up okay. I mean, again, summer league, often there's smaller guards, guys that are going to be playing overseas. They're not quite as strong, and Rob's been fine. Kevin Hansen even came out after last game. I was talking to him and said that, he's been really impressed with Rob's just kind of peskiness and tenacity. Offensively, I'm starting to just reset my expectations that he's probably never going to be an efficient scorer. Just he seems to be a rhythm shooter, which those type of players need 10 to 12 shots. And they're probably only going to get 13 or 14 points on those 10 to 12 shots with their free throws. But I don't think he's going to be like a 5 for 9 for 18 points type of guy. He really doesn't go to the rim very much. Even in summer league, when there's not these, towering defenders, he hasn't been attacking the rim as much. And when he does it frankly has looked bad, which is tough. I mean, he had a couple floaters in the first game that didn't even hit rim. He had another scoop shot that hit the top of the backboard and didn't hit rim. The finishing's going to be a problem because of his size, but I think his playmaking is the biggest asset he can bring. I mean, some of the reads he's able to make off of the dribble and some of the passes that he's able to make are like an NBA caliber point guard level passes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's able to hit those routes. He's able to hit bounce passes. I know the first game, looking back on it, he had a couple turnovers where Lenny just kind of bounced the ball off of his knees. But, if there's a hope for Rob to make it into the rotation this year, I think he's going to have to continue the okay defense, and he's really going to have to continue that high level playmaking, because the other aspects of the offense are still just kind of tough, to be honest.
Yeah, I still feel one of my comps for him coming out last year was Jamal Crawford, and he's obviously smaller than Jamal Crawford was, but the type of high volume scorer with the ability to pass and dribble the way he does. I mean, it took Jamal Crawford a few years to be an efficient scorer. I mean, and ultimately he became one of the best 6 men ever in the league. And then at the end of his career, it was kind of more of what it was early in his career, where he wasn't quite as efficient. And he never was actually all that efficient. If you go through and look at his shooting numbers, that's the type of player he reminds me of. And I do think, with the obvious caveat, he's 20, we're still very, very early. He's barely he's going to get an opportunity this year to, at some point, and maybe it is right away, to kind of, show what he can do. But I tend to agree with you that on some level, he's always going to be that guy who's hunting his shot. And when he gets hot, he's pretty unstoppable and he can make these dynamic passes. I mean, to your point about the shooting, so far in summer league, he scored 30 points on 29 shots. So that's, and in game 1, he had 7 turnovers to 6 assists. Game 2, he had 9 assists and only 4 turnovers. And I did feel like he played a little better in the second game. So you're going to take the bad with the good. And we'll see. Obviously last year, Chris Finch didn't have a ton of patience for it. And for a team that's gone to consecutive conference finals, that's understandable. But at the same time, especially with Nikhil Alexander-Walker, who is kind of their safety blanket last year when we need another point guard, there isn't really anybody else, at least now. Obviously they could still sign somebody, and maybe we could cover that, if we talk here after summer league, who's still out there, who could they look at bringing in. But yeah, I mean, Dillingham at this point is a little bit of an inefficient scorer who's extremely dynamic with his handle. And I agree with you on defense. I think he's actually been decent there. And last year I thought he was too, for the most part. I thought he competed. I thought he fought through screens, which is really all you can ask of a guy who's of that size. And I think that there was definitely some, I thought he was a little better than I expected, both last year and so far in summer league. I want to close by talking a little bit about Jaylen Clark, and then also just kind of what else we're looking for here over the final few games in summer league, and if there's anybody else that's really stood out to you. So we'll do that here next to close the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, whether you're all about baseball under the lights, of course, MLB All-Star break this week, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups, and the app will keep it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, they're fast to pay out, and they make even regular season games feel like must-watch events, which isn't always the case in 162 game baseball season. Maybe you're placing the same game parlay, or you want to watch a bet right into the ninth inning. Maybe you want to take a look at the home run derby tonight or the All-Star game, MLB All-Star game tomorrow night. FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so the third and I guess final Timberwolves player who saw regular rotation minutes last year for the Wolves and including a little bit of brief rotation minutes in the playoffs is Jaylen Clark. And I don't know if there's as much to say, at least I don't have much to say about what he's done so far in Summer League through 2 games. He's been pretty much exactly who we expected him to be, just an absolute menace defensively, harassing these poor guys that are never probably going to play in the NBA and just like stealing their lunch money. And then on offense, it's been a little bit more up and down. One of the things I was looking for was what's the shot look like for him so far or throughout his time in Vegas, because he shot 43% from 3 last year, under 100 attempts overall, but it was good enough that it's like, wait a minute, is he actually a better shooter than we all thought coming out of UCLA, where he was always kind of sub 33% from deep? So far through 2 games, he's 2 of 11 on threes, but I think the shot has mostly looked comfortable, at times maybe a little bit rushed. It's going to be a small sample no matter what through these 5 or 6 or whatever games in Vegas, but I don't know. I think I've just seen more of what we expect out of Jaylen Clark, and I don't know that we're looking for a whole lot else from him. Do you have any reaction to him, or I guess we could talk Leonard Miller, anybody else that stands out to you that you want to cover?
Jaylen Clark plays defense probably harder than I've ever worked in my life, and it's Summer League. Like, you're right. It's these poor guys that are probably going to be playing overseas somewhere, and Jaylen is 80 feet, full court press.
Yep.
Just
that first possession in game 2, it was just unbelievable.
Like, I asked Kevin about it after the game last night, Kevin Hansen. Kevin just kind of like laughed and went like, yeah, that's Jaylen Clark. That's what he does. So like, I think there's a spot for him still on this team this year. I mean, there's not many people that are that willing to play that type of defense. And there's going to be some games in like January and February where Clark gets 15, 20 minutes and looks awesome. Leonard Miller, I think has, it's tough because if you look at box scores, he's appeared to have played pretty well. I mean, he's scoring the basketball pretty efficiently, but he just kind of like you've said with everybody, he's a 20, 21-year-old kid. He's still really raw. He's out of position a lot. There was one play in the first game where he got the rebound and outletted it behind him to Johan, and Johan like gave him a weird look and then passed it up to, I think it was Amari Bailey. For the Leonard Miller stands out there, I don't think he's probably going to play a lot of minutes this year if things go right. Other guys that I've just been looking at, I mean, Amari Bailey, we've mentioned him a couple times. He was a top 10 recruit, Mr. California basketball. That was 3 years ago. He was a really efficient shooter in high school, and then his shot just fell off at UCLA, ended up getting drafted in the 2nd round, couldn't hit a shot with Charlotte, couldn't hit a shot with Charlotte's G League team, played for the Iowa Wolves last season for the end of the year, and it started to come around. I mean, he is a guy that is exceptionally talented. I wouldn't be surprised if the Wolves, if one of these Summer League guys gets that last, we used to call it the Gupta special, where it's like 2+1, 900,000, just end of a bench rotation. Yeah. He seems like he's a really good kid, and there's a lot of upside with him. The other person that hasn't played yet that I just continue to hear things about is the Irish kid, CJ Fulton. He played for the College of Charleston last season, brought them to the NCAA tournament. He has a ridiculous 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio his senior year of college. His grandpa is in the Irish Basketball Hall of Fame, played on the national team. His dad is also going to be in the Irish Basketball Hall of Fame, played on the national team. He is a coach's kid. Like, Amari Bailey, I asked him who impressed him most at camp. He's like CJ. He doesn't make mistakes. I love his game. Asked Kevin Hansen. Kevin Hansen's like CJ. He's TJ McConnell, but makes less mistakes. I think he's going to have some moments in the third and fourth games where it's going to be impressive because he just, from everything I've heard and the tape that I've seen on him, he just doesn't make mistakes, which if we're looking at Chris Finch and his history of backup point guards, Tyus Jones doesn't make mistakes. Monte Morris didn't make mistakes. McLaughlin doesn't make mistakes. Pat Bev, Rivers, really kind of competent backup point guards. I just kind of have a feeling that he might have a crack at one of those Gupta specials as well as he gets minutes the next two games.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree 100% on Amari Bailey. I think that there's that last actually technically two roster spots, and then there's also, as of right now, apparently one two-way spot available. I know that Tristan Newton, I believe they extended the qualified offer, so there's a good chance he's back, but those are also spots that we haven't talked about him. I thought he played pretty well in game 2. He didn't do much well in game 1.
I think Newton's looking for a guaranteed, and my guess is he might get one just with his pedigree at UConn. I wouldn't be surprised if Newton gets an actual
from somebody else or from the Wolves.
From somebody else.
Yeah.
I think if the Wolves really want to, they could, but I don't know. He's one of those interesting guys where I think if the wheels came off, he'd be able to play 10 minutes at point guard and be competent. I think there are teams that would probably give him a better role or bigger chance than the Wolves that he might be looking for.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And so, I mean, like all these guys are kind of auditioning. I talked about this the other day on Lockdown Wolves that, you know, between Amari Bailey and the other guy I mentioned was Jamal Cain, he wasn't as good in the second game, but he's a pro. Like he looks like he knows what he's doing. He's obviously bounced around the NBA a little bit. If they want somebody who is a break glass in case of emergency, calm stuff down type of a guy, just in case they need him, you know, he would be another option. And Amari Bailey obviously has a bit more upside given his youth. And you mentioned, we talked a little Jaylen Clark. The other thing I was going to say about him is if like we talked about that last rotation spot, the Nikhil spot being some combination of TJ Shannon, Rob Dillingham. I mean, Chris Finch has talked about going to 10. He's openly said, I think he said it live on the air the other night during the game, like, hey, we're probably going to run 10. I know he said it to the media at one point. So if that's the case, Jaylen Clark may very well be in that 10. It also is possible that we see a game where, you know, TJ Shannon's not it defensively and he's not making a shot, or Rob Dillingham isn't it defensively. And they're like, all right, Jaylen's going to play. You guys aren't playing. And so it could be sort of this, like, those three guys are kind of in and out of two spots. And I think that's probably the way that the Wolves are going to go into the season. And so there might be some nights where one of those three doesn't play. There's some nights where all three of them play, and it'll just be kind of this, you know, malleable final two spots of the rotation would be my guess. Let's close with this. Anything, or what specifically, you mentioned CJ Fulton as somebody to watch potentially over the next couple of games, but what's one thing that you're looking for over the next week in Summer League? You know, either an individual player, a specific thing the coaches try and do, or a skill from a player, or something that you're looking forward to or keeping an eye out for this week?
Yeah, in terms of the last two games, CJ Fulton's kind of the one that I'm looking at, because it's just, there's just certain players that just seem like a Chris Finch guy, and he just kind of seems like a Chris Finch guy. The other thing I've been really interested with is they've been playing Johan a lot with Jesse Edwards and even Rocco a little bit as the 4. And I've been kind of impressed at his ability to guard out on the perimeter and just stay in front of people. The other thing I will say is, like, the rumors are true. Like, he does have a jump shot. Watching him in shoot around, like, it's clean, it's tight. His follow through is good. I'm kind of hoping one game maybe they let him fire away a couple shots. So it's Summer League, why not?
Yeah.
I guess the last thing is just Rocco Zakarski. At some point we're going to get him for an interview, and I can just say, like, we need more Australians in the NBA. Whether it's Joe Ingles, Alana Smith from the Lynx, or Rocco, all of them I love.
That's funny. Yeah, he seems to be a good interview. There's a couple good clips out there of him. What was the joke he was making about what sport he would play? Something about how he'd be better than Michael Phelps at swimming, which I think his mom was an Olympic swimmer, right? Or was it his dad? One of his parents.
He was 16. He was the U16 Australian Olympic qualifier swimmer. So that guy can swim.
Yeah.
I will say he has not been to a good lake in Minnesota yet. So if anyone's
Okay.
seeing like a 7'3" Australian guy walking around, maybe direct him to some good swimming lakes.
All right. Anything you wanna plug or promote, Andrew, here?
Yeah, I'll just plug quick. I have articles that come out on Zone Coverage every Wednesday and Saturday, usually more in depth, kind of insidery articles since I have access to players and I'm not a journalist. So I ask them like what they play on 2K and stuff like that. And then I am still doing the post game show for the Lynx. That's going to start out immediately as soon as I get back from Vegas and they're back from the All-Star game. So after every game on my X and on the Missing Links YouTube channel, you can find those post-game lives, ask questions. I try and make it really fan friendly.
Awesome. Appreciate you doing it, Andrew. Enjoy Vegas and try and stay in the AC as much as you can.
That's the plan. And Ben, it's always a pleasure, man.
All right, there you have it. Andrew Dukowitz of Zone Coverage joining me to discuss Summer League. And, of course, we'll talk to him probably about a week from now when the Wolves wrap up in Vegas and talk about, overall what we saw through the week, what we're looking for coming out of Las Vegas Summer League as we head into kind of the quietest part of the offseason. So we'll have him back on the show again soon. I always appreciate him joining. Make sure to go check out his work. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get you ready for Game 3 of Wolves Summer League tomorrow, I think afternoon. So we'll talk about all that on Tuesday's show. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes will keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, our network is the local experts on all the biggest stories. And once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast. We'll catch you next time.